In the previous episode, Shaun failed during intimacy training with Carly. He only lasted 8 seconds before panicking and running away, which infuriated Carly and got him kicked out of her house. But when he mustered the courage to knock on Carly's door and nervously reached out his hand, they found their way back to each other. Football player, Art fractured his spine while lifting weights, but his family only cared about rushing the surgery so he could make money again. No one cared if he might be paralyzed. During surgery, Art's heart suddenly stopped. Neil jabbed a syringe of epinephrine straight into his heart, barely saving his life. Carly was also overwhelmed by the high-risk treatment they had just gone through, and through tears, she said she never wanted to do surgery with Shaun again. Then came a shocking case, a woman undergoing surgery with no anesthesia. She watched as doctors hammered metal pins into her thigh. Her screams of agony filled the room, the pain rating far beyond level 9, possibly over 10. Why was she being so cruel to herself? It all started when Kerry was rushed into the hospital. She'd crashed during a motorcycle ride, snapping one of her legs into 3 parts. Shaun quickly arranged a full-body scan. As expected, her injury wasn't a simple fracture. It involved torn ligaments, which meant surgery was unavoidable. Shaun told Kerry that they'd have to insert a steel rod into her thigh to stabilize the broken bone, but Kerry insisted she couldn't have anesthesia. The chemicals in it could cause her to relapse. The doctors had to reconsider the plan. Shaun suggested playing music. Studies show it can help ease pain. But clearly that wasn't going to be enough. That's when Neil proposed another option, using 2 thinner pins to connect the bones. This would reduce the pain, but Shaun objected. He warned that the joint would be unstable, increasing the risk of infection and possibly causing permanent disability. But with no better choice, they had to proceed. Inside the operating room, the doctors carefully reattached Kerry's leg, but the unbearable pain couldn't be dulled. Kerry felt like she was one step away from heaven. Her blood pressure skyrocketed, putting her at risk of going into shock. Luckily, they had prepared blood pressure medication and managed to keep her barely stable through the operation. After the surgery, Morgan told Kerry that with 6 months of recovery, she could walk again. Both Kerry and her husband smiled with relief, but soon after, Kerry's leg began to swell. This meant she had developed a vascular blockage, proof that the conservative method had failed. Kerry was stunned. She had endured all that pain for nothing. And worse, the doctors now had to make additional incisions and revert to the original plan. If not, her only other option was amputation. The doctors hoped Kerry would agree to anesthesia this time, but she firmly refused. She couldn't let all her past suffering be for nothing. Shaun and the others realized she wouldn't change her mind, so they called in her husband and explained everything. Boyd rushed to his wife's side. He understood her reasons and believed in her strength. With him by her side, she would be able to get through it. But even after hearing that, Kerry still said no. Neil had no choice. He scheduled the surgery without anesthesia once again, and this time, the pain would be even worse. As the pins pierced into her blood vessels, Kerry's blood pressure surged to a new high. No amount of medication could bring it down. Desperate, the doctors prepared the anesthesia. But right then, Kerry suddenly grabbed Shaun's hand. And even though Shaun was usually terrified of being touched, he didn't have a meltdown because he knew holding Kerry's hand could help distract her from the pain. He told the other doctors to hurry up and continue the procedure. The sound of metal striking metal grew faster. And finally, the surgery came to a successful end. Kerry had pushed through. Kaylee came to the hospital just to check out a sore throat. But Shaun arranged 88 tests for her. Surprisingly, Kaylee didn't mind. She said she had money and thought the doctor in front of her was incredibly sweet. It was the first time anyone had cared this much about her, so she even took a photo of Shaun. When Shaun received the test results and found no abnormalities, he became even more excited, because this could mean Kaylee had a rare disease. He told the attending Dr. Marcus about his theory. From acid reflux to tumors, Shaun listed 21 different rare conditions, each more obscure than the last. Shaun later told Kaylee he still wanted to order 37 more tests, but Marcus wouldn't allow it. Kaylee got anxious. "I've got money, can't I just do them?" But just then, Kaylee suddenly collapsed. Morgan rushed to put an oxygen mask on her, but Shaun stared at an image of a skull that had just formed in his mind. From it, he identified the exact cause of Kaylee's illness. Shaun quickly injected lidocaine into Kaylee's mouth. It's a local anesthetic. Amazingly, within seconds, Kaylee woke up. Her vital signs stabilized. Everyone stared at Shaun in shock. It turned out Kaylee had Eagle syndrome. It's so rare that even seasoned doctors often miss it. But Shaun got it right. As he basked in the joy of solving the mystery, a group of girls suddenly ran toward Shaun. They were fans. Turns out Kaylee was a social media influencer. She had posted about Shaun online and he quickly went viral. But Shaun didn't like the attention. When Kaylee tried to take another photo, Shaun had a sensory overload and stormed out of the room. Now that Kaylee's diagnosis was confirmed, Surgery was necessary. They needed to cut from her throat and remove part of the elongated styloid process without damaging any nerves or blood vessels. The operation wasn't too difficult. Shaun was supposed to perform it, but he didn't want to. So Morgan volunteered to take over the procedure. The surgery began quickly. They inserted the scalpel into Kaylee's throat, cut along the tonsillar mucosa beneath the jawbone, and located the elongated styloid. Part of it needed to be removed, but soon after it started, the monitor began blaring. Kaylee's blood pressure dropped. Her EEG went flat. That meant her brain wasn't getting enough oxygen. Morgan had accidentally grazed Kaylee's carotid artery. Now she started to panic. Fortunately, Shaun was also in the OR. He guided Morgan through stabilizing the wound and successfully removed the styloid fragments. The surgery should have ended there. But due to the brief brain ischemia, Kaylee could have fallen into a permanent coma. This was, without a doubt, a medical mishap. So, who would be held responsible in the end? Luckily, Kaylee woke up. She was fine, and she even helped promote the hospital afterward. Morgan in the end got her moment of glory. Meanwhile, Shaun was sitting in the president's office. Glassman asked why he refused to speak to reporters. Corey was born with underdeveloped airways, so not only was he unable to speak, but he also needed a tube inserted into his throat from birth just to keep breathing. But fortunately, this time, he met a doctor like Shaun. The moment Shaun saw Corey, he immediately thought of a solution. First, they needed to clear the blockage in Corey's airway to help him breathe normally again. It was a risky surgery, but when his parents saw the innocence in their child's eyes, they agreed to go forward. Soon, the surgery began. Shaun assisted while Dr. Lim performed the operation, but when they opened Corey's throat, they discovered the blockage was much larger than the imaging had shown, and all the doctors could do was start by cutting out the obstruction. As for how to help Corey speak again, that would require a long-term plan. When Corey woke up from the surgery, Lim gently covered his tracheostomy, and Corey began responding excitedly in sign language. He could finally breathe on his own. Though it still hurt a bit, the sensation of airflow was something he had never experienced before. Everyone in the room was moved by Corey's smile, but Shaun remained expressionless because his ultimate goal was to help Corey speak again. After that, Shaun dove into a mountain of research until one day he had a sudden flash of inspiration. He found the other doctors and told them that vocal cords weren't the only way to produce sound. For example, when people snore, it's actually the soft palate vibrating that makes the sound. But Lim said the soft palate is made of tendons and mucous membrane, and it's too soft to function that way. Shaun excitedly said, "Then use Corey's costal cartilage. It can be shaved into the shape of vocal cords and placed into his throat." This was completely unheard of. Lim wasn't confident about the surgery, but it was a logical proposal, so the doctors explained everything to Corey's parents. But after hearing it, Corey's parents refused. They thought the idea was too far-fetched and carried too much risk. Was it really worth it if their child might lose his life? Shaun didn't understand. If their child couldn't speak, could they really look forward to the future with joy? And Corey was already 10 years old. Didn't he have a say in this? At that moment, Corey signed to his parents again, expressing his own wishes. He said he trusted Shaun and was willing to take the risk, because if he missed this chance, he would regret it for the rest of his life. Shaun seemed to understand their silent exchange, and he smiled to himself. In the end, the surgery was scheduled. First, they extracted soft cartilage from between Corey's ribs. Then Shaun meticulously shaped it. Soon, an artificial vocal cord was finally completed. Shaun placed it into Corey's throat and finished the sutures. But just as the surgery was wrapping up, an alarm went off. Blood started gushing from Corey's throat. The doctors rushed to find the cause. It turned out the stitching had accidentally torn veins on both sides of the airway. Shaun immediately performed a second round of suturing on the veins. To help Corey speak again, the surgical team gave their all on the operating table. The surgery was a success. Corey gently pressed on his throat and tried to make a sound. The sound was faint, but to everyone's ears it was like heaven. With speech therapy, Corey would one day fully regain the ability to speak. Corey signed to Shaun, thanking him for never giving up and for insisting on doing the surgery.
This is the best day of his life.
You are very welcome.
Shaun, Alex, and Neil fought bravely, trying to save a woman who was found on the street. However, after their efforts, the woman's carotid artery ruptured, and she died from massive blood loss. Neil had no choice but to announce the time of death, and the others left the operating room one by one, but Shaun just stood there in front of the body, stunned. He couldn't let the cause of her death remain unknown. Shaun wanted to request an autopsy from the hospital, but to perform one, the administration required family approval. But when the patient was brought in, there wasn't a single item on her that could prove her identity, and no one knew who she was. Only that, before she died, she mentioned the name Coley. No one could tell if that was a person's name or the name of a cat or dog. Most people would have stopped there, but Shaun was as stubborn as a bull. He quickly went to Alex, who had a background in law enforcement, hoping he could use his investigative experience to uncover the woman's identity. Alex was extremely reliable. He told Shaun that since the woman didn't have a dime on her, it was possible she had stayed at a homeless shelter, and Shaun could cross-reference that with missing persons records. The process would be long and tedious, but Shaun didn't care about that kind of thing. Sure enough, that very night, he spent hours at the police station computer, and by morning, he had found the woman's information and her son Jules's address. Shaun and Alex rushed over, and Shaun blurted out to Jules, "Your mom's dead. I want to dissect her." If Alex hadn't been there, Shaun definitely would have gotten punched. Strangely, though, Jules showed no emotion when he heard the news. He just said, "Not my problem," and slammed the door shut. Shaun was left completely dumbfounded. But without permission for the autopsy, Shaun didn't leave. He stayed outside the door all day. When Jules stepped out, Shaun suddenly lunged toward him. Seeing Shaun come at him like a starving tiger, Jules thought he was being attacked by a madman and immediately called the police. The police arrived quickly, and Shaun was arrested on the spot and taken to jail. But clearly, a small setback like that wasn't enough to make Shaun give up. Soon, Shaun was bailed out, and at the same time, he decided to take a different approach. He went to Carly and asked if she could use her authority to help him. Although they had broken up not long ago over a difference in values, Carly agreed to help Shaun for the sake of their past. Shaun performed the autopsy on Maribel's body and examined her internal organs. When he picked up the liver, he discovered something unusual. Cut to Shaun running back to Jules's door, pounding on it furiously. He just wanted to tell Jules the cause of his mother's death. Shaun had found 3 aneurysms on the liver, which was extremely rare, but he was sure it was a deadly hereditary disease, meaning Jules likely had it too. Fortunately, if detected early, it was still treatable. That's why Shaun came late at night, just to give Jules a better chance at survival. You'd never believe it. This guy, barely over 1 meter tall, had achieved financial freedom by selling towels. He had enough luxury cars to fill an entire parking lot, and his girlfriends changed all the time. But right at the peak of his career, he was told he had a terminal illness. Of course, for this hospital, which had a 98% cancer survival rate, treating him was no big deal. They just needed to remove part of Finn's cerebellum, which wouldn't affect his intelligence. The only cost would be a speech impairment. When Finn heard this, he refused immediately. His eloquence was the key to his success. But his loyal girlfriend Natalie managed to talk him into going through with it. Right before surgery, the doctors ran another round of pre-op checks, and just then, another woman burst in. It turned out she was also one of Finn's girlfriends. Shaun could only stand there sulking. After all, he had just gone through a breakup himself. He also didn't like Finn much. The guy was checking the weather forecast during a conversation about his treatment plan. Finn seemed to notice Shaun's irritation. He told him he couldn't be tied down to just one relationship. He had dated many women, but none of them knew the truth. Right after he said that, Finn received an email, and without caring about his illness, he jumped out of bed and ran out of the hospital. It turned out Natalie had accidentally found out Finn had several other girlfriends. Finn tried to explain that he just saw them as sisters. Natalie didn't buy it. Faced with this master of time management, she grabbed a baseball bat and smashed Finn's luxury car to pieces. Shaun stood nearby and watched the whole thing unfold with great interest, and it seemed he might have learned something from it. That same night, after being dumped by all his girlfriends, Finn was so upset that he ended up in critical condition. Now the doctors had 2 treatment options in front of them. One was Shaun's plan, to remove part of Finn's cerebellum, which would result in paralysis. But Neil wanted to go for a conservative approach, to preserve Finn's mobility. The surgery began. In the end, Shaun had to follow orders, and they made an incision near the cervical spine to repair Finn's deformed joint. But then, the monitors started flashing red. They had accidentally damaged Finn's spine. Neil immediately called in the rest of the team for emergency resuscitation. After successfully relieving the pressure on Finn's heart, the crisis was temporarily under control. That's when Shaun finally seemed to understand. When doctors step into an operating room together, they must unite as one team and serve the patient with their full dedication. So he offered his own suggestions and soon helped the team complete the operation. The surgery came to a smooth end. When Finn woke up from his coma, he slowly raised his hand. It looked like he had been lucky enough to avoid any lasting paralysis. And the only real price he paid was losing all of his girlfriends.
Hey, there's a whole world of amazing people out there. Don't get bogged down with this notion of a soulmate.
And it seemed Shaun had been a bit inspired by Finn's words. Later that night, he went to a bar to try flirting, and something unfortunate happened.